So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the Detroit Lions are in full swing of OTA practices. They're about 3 days in, and we're really starting to get a look at roles. We're getting to look at which players are excelling and which players are falling behind, and overall getting a feel and a first look at the 2023 Detroit Lions. Today, I wanted to take a look at OTAs, do a deep dive, go position by position, standout player by standout player, and really give you an overview, a really big overarching look at how OTAs are looking so far and what the first impressions are of this 2023 Detroit Lions team. However, before we do get into it today, I want to thank the sponsor of the video. Yes, we have a sponsor for the first time on this channel, that being ETENWOLF, as they sent me their newest product, the SportsMate P300 ball pump. It is a product that they reached out to me about a couple of weeks ago, a product that I've used over the last couple of weeks pretty extensively in my personal off-season training, and it's a product that I think you guys would enjoy quite a lot. It is a pressurized ball pump. You basically charge it. You put in exactly how much PSI you want to put into the football, a soccer ball, a volleyball, a basketball, whatever sport you're playing or whatever sport you need a ball for. This is going to be a really good product for you. It pumps it up to the perfect amount, so it's not overinflated, it's not underinflated. And I know we have a lot of athletes on this channel. I know we have a lot of parents on this channel whose kids could potentially be getting into sports, or nephews or nieces getting into sports. There's a lot of different uses for it for a lot of different age gaps. It's very cheap. It's very affordable. It's a well-made product, and it's just a very good quality of life thing that's going to help any athletes or anybody that's wanting to play sports in the future at any point in time. So the link will be down in the description to that product. It's a great product, and I just want to thank them for sponsoring this video. But with that being said, let's get right on into taking a look at the 2023 Detroit Lions first OTAs. Now, I want to start off with the injury report, as the Lions have suffered through injuries quite a bit already compared to some other teams around the league. Now, Montgomery and Rodriguez both left yesterday's practice. Montgomery left with a lower left leg injury. I'm not exactly sure if it's an ankle or a knee thing. It didn't seem to be too incredibly painful, right? He walked off under his own power. He was able to go back to the locker room, stood with the coaching staff, and really lingered and debated whether or not he wanted to return to practice. I think they shut him down early because he really doesn't have very much to prove. Right? I think it was more of a precautionary thing of, yeah, you probably could go back to play, but at this point, it's really just not worth returning. So he left back to the locker room early on yesterday's practice, as well as Malcolm Rodriguez, who I couldn't find a lot of information on as far as where the injury occurred, but he did also go back with Montgomery early and did not return to practice. Now, Tracy Walker, who was coming off of a torn Achilles, is back at practice, is participating in OTAs, but is severely limited, is not doing 11-on-11 or 7-on-7 drills, just doing a lot of the walkthrough stuff, doing a lot of the position drill stuff, not making any hard cuts, not making any hard sprints yet. But he did talk to the media and say that he will be a full go for training camp in a couple of weeks when that eventually comes around. But for the time being, they're taking it light. They're kind of easing him back into things physically, and he is not partaking in the team drills just yet. And then you have Jahmyr Gibbs, who did suffer an ankle injury in rookie minicamp. And a lot of people were very upset. A lot of people were already very pessimistic. Jahmyr Gibbs did miss the first couple of days of OTAs, but did return yesterday in a really nice role. And he seems to be completely fine. He's moving very well. He is cutting easily. He is very smooth and dynamic as an athlete. Was participating in position drills, was participating in 11-on-11s and 7-on-7s, and looked like a very, very dynamic weapon. The ankle did not seem to be limiting him at all, but because he did have the injury a few days ago, I did want to bring that up as well, although he does seem to be okay after taking a few days of rest. Starting off with the quarterbacking position, I'm not going to lie, the quarterbacks have been struggling from what I've been reading and from the highlights that have come out. Goff especially has really been overthrowing a lot of his wide receivers and struggling early to build chemistry with guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and Jameson Williams. He had overthrows to Jahmyr Gibbs on a deep wheel route where he beat the linebacker and was open for a touchdown. Same thing goes for Jameson Williams, who was open on a post route down the field, and Jared Goff just overthrew it by a couple feet. And then Josh Reynolds, a player that he supposedly does have a lot of chemistry with their time with the Rams and the Lions, he also missed in a pretty big gap as well. Now, of course, it's the first couple of days of OTAs, right? You're getting back into the swing of things, and you've never thrown to Jahmyr Gibbs. You really haven't thrown very much to Jameson Williams. And even Josh Reynolds missed a large majority of last season, so you haven't thrown to him in several months, almost an entire half year. So I don't necessarily think it's a ability thing. I think it's just a building chemistry type thing, right? You got to build chemistry with Jahmyr Gibbs. It's not as easy to throw to a 4-3 guy as you might think because they cover so much more ground than, say, Amon-Ra St. Brown or Tom Kennedy. They're just very different football players, right? They cover a lot more ground. You can put more air under it, but Jared Goff is putting a little too much air under some of these footballs, so he's going to have to reel it back in a little bit. Again, I don't think it's an ability thing. I think it's a chemistry thing. I think it's figuring out where to place the football so that they can get to it. Because obviously throwing to a 4-5 wide receiver like Amon-Ra St. Brown is different than throwing to a 4-3, 4-2 wide receiver like Gibbs and Williams. But I do think Jared Goff is starting off OTAs a little bit on a downward trend. So hopefully that is going to fix itself up and it is going to not impact the Lions too heavily this offseason. Running back positions, there's not a whole lot about the RBs right now. Of course, there's not a lot of contact. There's not a lot of break tackle ability. We just have really positional drills and some receiving ability. Obviously, David Montgomery is out this last couple of days, but Jahmyr Gibbs was back and, as I said, looked really, really good. And then a surprise name coming up in OTAs, a player that always seems to improve and always seems to stand out in offseason trainings, but never really shows up on the field, is Jamar Jefferson, a 7th-round pick, Dan Campbell's first ever draft class. Is a player that the Lions very clearly like, is a player that is always making plays in the preseason, always making plays in OTAs, but just never really finds a way onto the active roster. It was said that Jahmyr Gibbs has had a really good OTA so far. He's broken off a couple nice runs, has shown the ability to stop and start, has shown, just the ability to read gaps very well, and has a very natural feel for the running back position right now. I think he's going to be competing for that final running back spot with Muhammad Ibrahim and Craig Reynolds as far as who is going to be the RBs 3 and 4 on this team and who is going to sneak their way onto the practice squad roster. Now, taking a look at the tight ends position, again, not everybody has been out there making plays. Not everybody has necessarily had an article written about them, but for what I could find, Shane Zylstra is making the biggest impact. He's made a couple really big plays, a couple nice seam shots down the field, and has really shown the ability to be a really good wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. The Sam Laporta reportedly opened up OTAs kind of quiet, right? Working with the second and third teams, not necessarily being the playmaker that he was at rookie minicamp, but he's been working his way steadily up the depth chart over the last couple of days. And as from what I've heard, has improved every single day. And by days 3 and 4 of OTAs has looked really, really good. And as I said, as a second-round rookie, you got to work your way up the depth chart. He's doing that very slowly, very steadily. And for right now, from what it seems like he is working primarily with the second team, working with Nate Sudfeld, working with that second-team offensive line and second-team quarterback, but has started to make more plays day by day and has started to look pretty good as a receiving weapon for the Detroit Lions as well. I haven't found too much information on James Mitchell specifically, nor have I seen much on Brock Wright. They just haven't really been on the field a whole lot or haven't making the same plays as these other two tight ends, but they are two players that to keep an eye on for the remainder of OTAs in training camp. Going on to wide receivers, Jameson Williams has reportedly improved his route running significantly. He's a player that's always had the separation, always had the speed. In this offseason, there was a very clear point of emphasis on the route running ability. He has created a ton of separation through OTAs, was wide open on post routes, on comebacks, on curls, on slants. I mean, almost every route in the route tree, Jameson Williams is running to perfection. He's creating the separation, but does have some drop issues, has dropped a couple of passes early in OTAs, and it was said that Amon-Ra St. Brown pulled him aside after a couple of drops and had a nice talking to with him, and Williams' catching improved slightly, but he is struggling to hold on to the football early. Hopefully, him and St. Brown can work together and improve those hands, right? Jameson Williams is a dynamic athlete with the football in his hands, but he can't do that if the ball isn't in his hands. St. Brown, one of the best catching wide receivers in the NFL, very rarely ever drops passes, is working one-on-one with Williams on the sidelines on after practice stuff, and they are working on improving his hands. And then Dylan Drummond, the UDFA from Eastern Michigan, a player that wasn't signed initially in the UDFA class, but was signed after rookie minicamp, is having a very good day against the third string defensive backs. It was said that there was 3 or 4 reps where he just looked simply unguardable, running very clean routes, making very secure catches, and making big plays with Adrian Martinez throwing him the football. Those two seem to have a really nice early connection for the third string offense. And I think Dylan Drummond is a guy that could potentially beat out guys like Chase Cota or even Antoine Brown for that last wide receiving spot, if not eventually ending up on the practice squad. Now, we don't have very much on the offensive and defensive lines as pads are not out yet, but we do have quite a bit of information on the linebackers. It's Alex Anzalone and Derek Barnes are the starters on day one. Alex Anzalone playing the Mike and Derek Barnes playing the Will linebacker positions respectfully. Alex Anzalone spoke a lot about Derek Barnes and said that he has made a lot of jumps from years 1 to 2 and then years 2 to 3, especially this year. He said that the jump has been really big. Barnes is reading the game like a veteran. He's playing like a veteran in OTAs, and he's looked really, really good. While Jack Campbell is the second team Mike linebacker, and Malcolm Rodriguez is the second team Will linebacker. I think that the Lions are pairing these guys up, not necessarily because that's what the starting lineup is going to look like on day one, but I think it's going to work best where Alex Anzalone works with Derek Barnes, a player that's a 4th-round pick, has a lot of upside, has some ability, and played really well in some games last year. I think working with the team captain, working with the veteran makes a lot of sense for him. And then you pair up the 2 young linebackers, right? Jack Campbell just drafted this past year. Malcolm Rodriguez drafted 2 drafts ago at this point, both going through very similar situations. Malcolm Rodriguez is going to be able to coach Campbell through exactly what he went through last offseason and is going to kind of help him in that regard. I think both of them will be starting linebackers by the time the season rolls around. And I think all 4 of these linebackers are going to play a role on the defense. As again, this isn't necessarily indicative of, Campbell's not going to start come week 1. He's not going to start by the preseason. Rodriguez is on the bench, right? It's a role-playing game. It is a mentorship game. It is a who fits best personality-wise game and who's going to help the other person reach their ceiling faster type of thing. So this isn't necessarily who's going to start day 1, but I did think the pairings were very interesting as Anzalone and Barnes are starting with Campbell and Rodriguez with the second team. Now, going over to DBs, we have a lot of defensive backs on this roster and a lot of different roles that we want to hear about. As of right now, Cam Sutton and Jerry Jacobs are the starting boundary cornerbacks, with the starting safeties being Tracy Walker and Kirby Joseph. Now, Tracy Walker, of course, as I said, has not been playing in the 11-on-11s. So when he is not doing that, the starting safeties are CJ Gardner-Johnson as well as Kirby Joseph. When CJ Gardner-Johnson is not at free safety, when Tracy Walker is in, CJ has been in the slot cornerback. And when CJ goes to the free safety position, then Will Harris slides in as the slot cornerback. Brian Branch has had a number of different roles throughout training camp so far, as he has played both slot cornerback as well as free safety in a very similar role to how they have CJ Gardner-Johnson playing right now. And they've just basically had him sitting on basically the second team everything, right? He is the second team safety. He's the second team slot cornerback. He's been taking a few reps with the first team, but primarily with team 2, and has looked really good at a lot of positions for a young player learning a lot of different roles at the NFL level. And then we have the interceptions. Ifeatu Melifonwu, Brady Breeze, and CJ Gardner-Johnson all came away with interceptions this past couple of days. Ify was able to jump a route that was deep and pick it off. That was targeted, I believe, for Jameson Williams. Brady Breeze was the sole interception on Nate Sudfeld on Team 2's 11-on-11s. And then CJ Gardner-Johnson picked off a tipped pass from Jared Goff. It was tipped by John Kaminsky and intercepted by CJ Gardner-Johnson. The defense seems to be much more aggressive this offseason. They seem to be taking the football away quite a bit early on. And again, while the offense continues to build that chemistry, the defense seems to be jumping on footballs early and seems to be forcing quite a few number of turnovers. So with that being said, that is the biggest takeaways from OTAs, position by position, player by player. There's a lot of guys that have made a lot of big plays and a lot of players that are still looking to make that impact on the roster. Let me know down in the comments below what players we didn't talk about that you would want to hear about. If there was anybody that I missed, anybody that you wanted to hear about, I'd be very, very interested to hear about it. And of course, I would love to make a video on what you guys want to hear. But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know how you guys feel about the early OTA standouts. And if you have enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe and go down and like the video. Helps us out a ton, and you can hit the bell notification so you never miss a Detroit Lions upload. But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions!